Hello, welcome back. In this lesson, we will learn how to use formulas in Microsoft Excel. Let me begin by explaining what an Excel formula is. So, normally in Microsoft Excel, formulas allow us to perform numerical calculations automatically. So, a formula is an expression used in Excel to calculate values. Formulas usually start with equal sign. So whenever you're using or whenever you are about to calculate something using Microsoft Excel, or you want to uh, form a function, a numerical function, a calculation function, so always you have to begin with it has to begin with the equality sign, which is equal sign like this. So for instance, let's say we are adding let's say we are adding something, so it must begin with the equality sign like this. So let's say maybe equal, let's say 2 plus 3, meaning we have to add two numbers, which is 2 plus 3, right? So you see it sums uh, those two values, which is 2 plus 3, and it gives out the result as what? As 5. So this is how formulas work. So whenever you are to write or you are to calculate something using Microsoft Excel, so you have to begin with equality sign. All functions and calculations or formulas start with the equality sign. So it's one of the rules that you have to take note of. So without having to waste much time on this, let's just dive deeper into today's lesson, which is on Excel formulas. As you can see, this is a given where I'm hovering my cursor right now is a given data set for this to carry out these numerical calculations in order to explore how all those Excel formulas, because as you can see here where I'm hovering my cursor right now, also it's another word. It's just as you can see a column with some if, some ifs, and then we have average and count, right? So all those are Excel formulas that we are going to explore right now and see how it works. So let's just begin with the sum function, which is the summation of what? The summation of numbers or values or data entries. So we are going to see how this is going to work. So because this sum is something, as you can see here in our given data set here where I'm hovering my cursor right now, the total is all the what? All the cells were empty, right? So we are going to make use of the sum function to calculate this total total values of all these scores. As you can see, this is a given data set of students, of student records, right? Here are the given names of the students where I'm hovering my cursor right now, and then here is the gender, and then here is the subject mathematics, and then we have English and biology. So let's calculate. Let's first begin by calculating the total sum of each student score, and in all subjects we have the mathematics subject, the English and biology. So let's sum all the scores in both three subjects to see the total the total in which each student gets from the three subjects. So now let's begin with the first student. Here we have Aisha and her score in mathematics, which is 65, and then she got 70 and English, and then she got 72 in biology. So let's calculate the total for Aisha and C. So let's begin with the, yes, we can do we can use the sum function here because we are adding all what, all scores in yeah, all scores in all subjects, right? We are adding the scores in all subjects, so we can use the sum function here to calculate this value. So let's begin by typing the equal sign, then we now write sum. As you can see, we have been prompted with some formulas. So here is what we are actually going to use, which is sum, right? So let's use sum. Then we targeted the cell's address in which we are going to calculate. So we are calculating for Aisha, right? So we now select the appropriate cell addresses. So we have, this is Aisha's course in mathematics, and then we now select for English, as you can see, and then we now select for biology. I'm coming, let me move this. I think this is stopping us from entering the third value, which is, I think it's, well, right now we have the cell address of mathematics is C3, and then we have D3, and the next cell address is going to be A3, right? So let's replace this D3 with A3, which is the last cell address. So now, after selecting the cell address, so all we need to do is we just hit enter, then it's going to be calculated automatically. So let's hit enter and see what the result is. So as you can see, the total score of in all subjects for Aisha is 207 and 7, right? So this is how we go about calculating the total. It's just a sum using the sum function. So you see, we can also calculate for the second student, which is John. So there is another shortcut way of doing this. Since we have done for Aisha, so there is no way for there is, it doesn't mean we can keep on calculating for each student, you understand? So there is a way we can shortcut this, so we can just apply the what, the first rule to fill in the remaining uh, gap for us for the remaining students. So let's see how we do this. We just tap on under this total, the total cumulative score of Aisha, then we just move our cursor. As you can see, it's hovering like something, it's giving another symbol. So you just left click on it, then you drag down, you peel, you use the peel tool to calculate for the rest of the student. After you've reached your final destination, then you release it. So as you can see, all the remaining student, for the remaining student, John, Mary, David, and Fatima have been calculated automatically using the what, using the pure tool. So this is how we go about it. So you see, this is something very impressive, and it is our work instead for us to be doing it manually. So we use the pill tool to complete the rest of the calculation for the remaining students. So this is really amazing. So you see, this is how sum is working. So let's begin with this sum function here. Let's see how this work. So as per this, let's sum all the total, let's just calculate the sum of all total for all students. Yeah, so let's say, assuming we are calculating, so we type in the equal sign sum using the sum function, then we now select the range, which is from cell address F3 to what, to F7. Then we hit enter and it will be automatically calculated. So you see, this is the cumulative what, total for all students scores. So this is how we calculate sum. And then there is another this thing, there is another sum function, which is sum if. So let's see how we explore this and how this work. So as for sum if, you are calculating sum, but it's based on what? Based on a given criteria. You are given what? You are setting a condition. You understand? So this is how you calculate sum using what? By setting in a criteria, or by giving, or by using a given what? Condition. So assuming now we are to calculate sum. Okay. We are to find sum. Let's first write the function. Let's say sum sum if, right? Oh, I did not write the equality sign, so let me write equal sign sum if. So you see that's it, right? So let's use it. So let's select the range in which the targeted cells, the range in which we are targeting. Then we set in what? The criteria. So as it is now, let's let our range pose under this mathematics subjects. So let's say we are looking for scores under this mathematics subject. Let's highlight all the cells. So as you can see, we have set in what? The range now. So we are to find a score under what? Under all scores under the subject mathematics, right? So now let's give it a criteria. Let's set in the criteria. Let's say we are looking for a score. If the score, let's search, we are calculating sum for scores that are above 60. You understand? So let's set in the criteria as that. So this will be our criteria. Let me type in the criteria and see how this work. Let me type in. So this is going to be, then we write in the criteria. Let's say if score is greater than, or let me target the address first. Yes, that's it. Let me say if greater than what? If score is greater than 60, then it should sum for those scores, for those students, the students with the score above what? 60, it should sum what? Their scores for me. So let me hit enter and see. So you see it has what? Sum the score of what? Students in which their score is what? Above 60. So let's check in and see. This is how this thing work. So let's see, from the given scores we have under mathematics subject, as you can see where I'm hovering my cursor right now, we have uh, Aisha score, which is 65, and which is what? The criteria is what? She's the criteria involves what? Aisha, right? Because Aisha's score is greater than what? 60. And then let's check in again. We have John, which is John also, his score is what? 80. So he's also what? Included, because his score is above what? Is above 60, right? And then we have Mary, which have the score of 55. So as you can see, Mary should be what? Excluded from the summation that we are what? We are calculating. So we are summing all the scores that are what? Above, with the scores above what? 60. So Mary is what? Is excluded from our criteria. So she's not going to be included. So also David will be included, and Fatima also will be included. So you see, this is telling you that this is the total sum of what? the total sum of the score of what? The total score of summation score of Aisha, John, the David, and what? Fatima. So let's verify this and this. Let's say equal sign sum. Let's select for Aisha, I think, and then we have John, and then Mary is excluded, I think, right? So there is no need for us to include Mary. Then we're skipping Mary. Then we have David and what? Fatima, right? So let's hit enter and see the result. So you see it's what? 380. So you see the criteria works. So it exclude what? It exclude Mary from the what? From the summation, because she did not satisfy what? The condition. Her score is what? Below 60. So this is how we use the sum if function. Okay, now let's move to the sum ifs. So this is where you normally what? This is where you normally calculate. So you see, this is sum if, and this is what? Sum ifs. Meaning if you have what? So many criterias. So you can use what? Sum ifs to what? To calculate, to set in what? All those criteria. So let's see how this works. So we have, let's see how this works. Let's start with, let's say, equal signed. Let's calculate for this and see. Let's see how this works. Equal sign. Then we now see the function, which is what? Sum if, right? Sum if. So this is it. We are done with sum if. Mind you, if you are selecting this sum if and sum ifs, so there are two different things, and those different what thing. So you have to be very careful while selecting those two functions. So we are selecting this sum ifs, right? Okay. Then we now select the range, the sum range, right? Let's say from the total sum for the total, you understand? Sum from the total range. The sum range will be what? The total from the total score of all students. You understand? Then we now say comma. Then we now look for the what? First criteria. You understand? We look for the first criteria. We set in the first criteria here. Then we now move. Let's say we are calculating. Let me think. What are we going to use? Let me see. Let's say, assuming we are calculating for let's say we are after targeting student with what? Female student with the scores above what? With the score above 60 in mathematics subject. So let's target it that way and see how it works. So you see, this is the what? Sum range, right? And then we are targeting what? We are targeting based on what? Female student, based on gender, female students with the score. So our criteria will be based on what? Based on score. We are after looking for what? Female students that are with the mathematics that are with the mathematics score above what? 60. About 60. They scores above 60 in what? Mathematics subject. So this is how we do it. So now we are setting in the first criteria, which is this. Then we now say this is the same thing as the criteria is going to be what? We are after targeting what? A female student, right? So this is going to be we now say the criteria is going to be female, right? Female. And then we now close it. Then we now separate it by comma. So we now move to the what? Second criteria, right? Okay, now the second criteria will be based on what? Mathematics subject. We are after finding female students with a score above what? Above 60 in mathematics subject. So this is how we target the next one. We now go and set criteria under what? Under mathematics subject, right? And then we select, and then we now say comma, and then we now give the criteria, which is going to be, let's say we are after what? Female students that are with this in mathematics, so in mathematics subject with the score above what? 60, right? So we set it this way. We now say is greater than 60. Then we now put the quotation, and then we now hit enter. So you see it sums what? The total of what? Total score of two students, which is what? With what? With the mathematics score above 60, right? So as you see, the female student here with the score above 60, we have only what? Aisha, and then we have what? Fatima here. So they are the only what? These are the only two student. These are the only two student. These are the only female what? Student with the score of what? With the score above 60 in mathematics. So it's what? It's sum their what? Total score altogether. So as you can see, it's sum this cell and what? And this cell. Sorry, it's sum for what? For total score of Aisha and then what? Fatima. So this is going to be, let's verify this and see. So let's say equals sum, then we now select for what? The total, the female student with the above score 60 in mathematics subject. We have Aisha, and then we have what? Fatima. No. We are selecting the whole cell. I'm coming. After only Aisha and Fatima, right? So let's hit enter and verify. So you see this is their total, this is their score for this one, but we are after what? We are after finding their what? Total score, the cumulative what? Total score of these two students. So it's going to be like this. Sum, then we now target for what? Aisha, right? Because it's Aisha with the above score what? 60, right? And then we have what in mathematics? Sorry. And then we have the Fatima, right? So let's hit enter and verify the result here, which is 420, right? So you see this is how it works. So let's move to the next one, which is the average function. Let's calculate average. Let's see how we explore this function. So as per function, this is how we go about it. We say equal average, and then we select the cell address, the cell range in which we are calculating. So let's say we are calculating the average for all totals of all schools. Then we hit what? Enter. So you see the average is what? 219.2. So this is how we calculate average using the calculation, using the average what? Function. And then the last formula, which is count. This is just normal function, like we are counting something, assuming you are counting something. Let's say we are counting the the score of what? The score of Aisha in both subjects, maths and what? English and biology here. So we can say count, or we can target it all what? All those scores in all subjects, both maths, English and what? Biology. So this is going to be something like this. Let's say, let's type in the formula first, which is equal count, then we now select what? The value in which we are calculating. Let's say we are calculating for the whole what? The whole score of all students. So let's target all these cells, you see, and then we now hit one, enter. So we have what? 15 score in all what? Subject, because Aisha here has what? 3 scores, right? And then we have John here have what? 3 scores in 3 subjects, and then so also for what? Mary, David and what? Fatima. So this is going to be 3 times what? 3 times I think there are 5 students. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 3 times 5, which is what? 15. So you see, this is, you just count what? All these scores. We have what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. So this is how what? The count function works. So I think these are all. We have explored all these functions one after the other, and we have seen how all this function works. So as for this one, the sum function, let me just briefly explain again what the sum function is, and then the average function, so also the count function. So as for the sum function, the sum functions adds what? Numbers together, right? Or values. And then for the average function calculates the average of what? Numbers, right? We use average functions to calculate the average of all numbers, right? And then the last one, which is the count function, the count functions counts how many numerical values exist in a what? In a targeted range, or maybe in a highlighted what? Range. So that's how it works. So here comes end of this lesson. In this lesson, we have learned how to use the sum function, average and count functions, right? In Excel, using Microsoft Excel. So please don't forget to download the data set and complete the assignment before moving to the next lesson. Thank you all. I will see you in the next lesson.